WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. There are a lot of stories in the big city here, including beanballs and the Adam Jones incident, Manny Machado, and all of that, as well as the Wizards and the residue of the Ravens draft. But many of you know I have spent the better part of the week up the mountains with Yins and At in the Still City. Capitals got the better end of the Penguins in Game 3, had a golden opportunity in Game 4, many golden opportunities. This guy's witnessed it all over 6 years, as my eyes have seen over the last 40 years. He is the voice of the Washington Capitals. You can follow his journey out on Twitter. There's a wonderful picture of Alex Ovechkin having some fun with John Walton. He's at Walton Caps out on Twitter, and much like all of us, a little shell-shocked at the notion of the Caps having to not necessarily be perfect on Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday, but this is a deep hole, John Walton. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I certainly still believe, and I don't even say it tongue-in-cheek, that the Caps can win this series.
Yeah, Nestor, certainly it's a big uphill battle from here. I mean, when you look at the opportunity after Game 3 and going into Game 4, where you win, you come out firing, and you get a victory that would have evened the series, and you're coming home, and suddenly all the momentum's back in your direction. But that's not the case now. And what they've got to be able to do in the course of the next 3 games, and there is no margin for error, you've got to be able to come up with victory, victory, victory. And if you don't, then there are going to be consequences, I think, that are going to be a little deeper than people maybe realize. And some of it's going to happen anyway, even if they win a Stanley Cup, because there are so many contracts that are up. And one would think that that would be a bit of a motivator for the guys in the room, because this group will not be together again. There are going to be significant changes just because of the salary cap. Brian McClellan's not going to have a choice, but maybe they go even a little bit deeper if they end up flaming out here in the second round, because they need to be able to show that this group has what it takes to make a deep run, and so far we haven't seen that yet.
Are you shocked at how flat it really looked in the beginning of the Game 4? I mean, you and I sat up on the roof 2 weeks ago in Toronto in Games 3 and 4, and I know Game 3 didn't go in the direction they wanted to go in, but they came out absolutely flying. It really, to me, to my eyes on Wednesday night, they looked tired. I thought both teams kind of looked tired, but the Capitals looked more tired to me early on in moving their legs in these crazy offensive zone penalties that I believe were brought by not laziness, not lack of want, just not as much gas in the can. At least that's the way it felt to me on Wednesday.
Well, I think there's an argument there. I think when you look at the Toronto series, as you mentioned, I thought that this team, not even just this year, but maybe in the Barry Trotz era, for whatever reason, have always been able to deliver the goods on the road. It's been at home where it's been a little bit more of an issue. Even think back to the Islanders series in 2015. They end up winning it in 7, and yes, they did win Game 7 at home, but they lost Game 1. They nearly lost Game 2, and then had to scrap from behind, winning on the road, managed to get themselves in a position to win the series late in that series. And the Toronto series, I thought they were great in Game 3 and in Game 4. They weren't very good. Their worst 10 minutes of this postseason was probably the beginning of Game 1 and gave the Leafs some life. And I think that's a situation where, you know, it's kind of the same thing in this series, where they weren't as good as they needed to be at home. And they were pretty good at the beginning of Game 3, and they managed to play their game for the most part in Game 3, only to see it get away at the end. And you know, again, you're giving your opponent a little bit of life. Even if you do manage to get the overtime winner, it still didn't get you everything you needed. You needed one more. And I was a little surprised. Yeah, I thought there should have been more urgency. I think that the Penguins had every reason to be tired and hurting and shorthanded, because they were without Crosby and without Sheary, and they've been without Letang and been without Murray. They have answers, and they play like a champ. If the Caps want to be a champion, they have to play like that. And I'm hoping that they do in Game 5.
Yeah, certainly Barry Trotz brought that up in the end and really put it on his best players who, I mean, he's not telling stories out of school, and he's not trying to use the podium as a motivational technique. Alex Ovechkin, knows he didn't play well, and he looked as stiff-legged as almost anyone, I thought, on Wednesday night. But the whole thing was really set. The tone was set when Orlov had the own goal. I mean, that's always difficult to overcome psychologically, and I know they got back in it, but in the end, it was a one-goal game, and that was a goal last I checked.
Yeah, I mean, when that goes in, I know, it's tough to come back from mentally no matter what, even if you manage to dig out of that hole, and Justin Williams made that suggestion last night. And he's not wrong, but it's still a one-goal game, and you end up losing by one, and that was one of them. So I guess it depends on your perspective. But to your point about the top line, 4 shot attempts for Alex Ovechkin, that's not going to get it done. No shots on net for Nicklas Backstrom. That's not going to get it done. You need your top line. And by the way, TJ Oshie, who I think has been over the balance of work in these 2 postseasons, he's been terrific. But he's been pretty quiet in this series, and he hasn't been able to get too many shots on goal. He's had a few more shot attempts, and he's had points. He's managed to get assists, and Nick Backstrom has put up points too, to be fair, just not in Game 4. But you've got to have your big dogs eat, and if they don't, then you start to look around, well, who's going to carry the mail? I thought Evgeny Kuznetsov was really good in Game 4, but I know this, that what made the Capitals successful through the course of the regular season was the fact that they could count on a third line and fourth line to chip in offensively. They have done virtually nothing in this postseason. Tom Wilson is the only guy that has a goal among the bottom 6. And Jay Beagle, who had a career best in goals, he may be hurting. Look, any of them may be hurting. Andrei Burakovsky, not good enough. I mean, you've got to be able to get shots on goal. He's skating with passion. It's not that he's not trying. He absolutely is. But this is the Stanley Cup playoffs in the second round, and trying's not good enough. You've got to be able to get pucks on net. Andre didn't last night. I listed him as one of our X factors on the broadcast and on NHL Network last night. That's what made Washington successful during the year. Lars Eller and Tom Wilson have chipped in offensively a little bit here and there, but Andre really hasn't. And that's somebody that you got to look to if you're going to have that balanced attack that can play with anyone. You've got to have contributions from all over the roster.
He is John Walton. You can follow his journey at Walton Caps out on Twitter. He is the voice of the Washington Capitals. And, certainly for you up in the box in the moment, and I know, Doc had to deal with this and Joe and Locker deal with it all the time, trying to make sense of the Crosby hit in real time and then having a chance to slow it down, which probably makes it look worse and not better. I saw that mainly as a hockey play, but I also would have been okay if they would have said to Niskanen, you can't play Game 4 because you can't hurt Sidney Crosby in the same way that, we got this circus going on in Boston right now, John, with these beanballs and the Red Sox and the Orioles. At some point, it needs to be adjudicated. I do not think Niskanen meant to hurt him. I certainly think Ovechkin should have gotten 2 minutes in that case. But either way, Crosby was skating by Thursday, maybe available, maybe, Sullivan would play him, maybe not. I kind of don't expect him to play Saturday night. I would expect them to try to go win a game without him and let him rest up and come back for 6 and 7 if necessary.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see Sidney Crosby in this series, if for no other reason, because unless you get back to a Game 7 and back in Washington in the middle of next week, you really don't need him if you're Pittsburgh, and he has had a history, so there really isn't any reason. About the hit, I didn't think it wasn't a suspendable hit in my vision, but I think I had no problem with him changing the penalty from 2 to 5, given the severity of the injury. The initial call was 2 minutes. And I think it was a 2-minute penalty, and I think they ended up getting something a little bit more of a felony than a misdemeanor in this case because of the seriousness of the hit. But in my mind, not worthy of a suspension. You brought up a good point about Ovechkin. He didn't get a penalty. He probably should have. If you would have said, it's easy for me because all of that happened in the span of just over 1 second. So the referees do the best job they can. But if you're slowing it down and you look at it, I'd say, okay, Ovechkin for high sticking, Niskanen in a cross-check, 2 penalties on the play, a 5-on-3 for Pittsburgh for 2 minutes, and then we get back at it. I'd have been fine with that. I don't think there would have been. I think that would have been the proper call. I think Ovechkin didn't get what he probably could have, and Niskanen probably got more because of the situation. But the actual hit didn't warrant suspension. I saw Pierre LeBrun say on Twitter that he had pulled 23 different general managers, coaches, and hockey people, and all but 6 say they didn't think it was suspendable. There were a couple that were on the fence. I think it's a matter of, like Barry Trotz said, it's a car accident. Everybody's got their version of what they saw, what they thought they saw. We may look at it with Washington glasses. I mean, we try and be as objective in the booth as we can. We said penalty right away. I don't think there was any doubt of that. We brought up the Ovechkin high stick in the moment, and we did the best we could to make sense of it. And I think that, given the vitriol and nastiness on social media and you name it that came from Pittsburgh fans, I understand. If the reverse were true and it had happened to TJ Oshie or Alex Ovechkin, our fans would have been upset too.
I've dealt with that with the Red Sox and the Orioles all week with the beanball. It's every fan base thinks their guy's right. I mean, that's just kind of where it is. But I do have respect for the fact that he's the best player in the game. He's playing, I saw the Don Cherry bit as well on the internet. And, he is playing the best game that he's ever played at this point with a depleted team there. And if that's Ovechkin laying on the ice, we want the book thrown out. We want the death penalty, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think that's where, you go from, you try and be as objective as you can. And I think in the broadcast booth, we all try to. I certainly understand the anger on the other side. I think there was a lot of over the top on the Pittsburgh side, but there was probably some over the top on the Washington side too. There's no doubt it was a penalty. I think even Matty acknowledged in his statement after the game that, yeah, you know what? It did look very good in the slow-mo, but it wasn't in slow-mo. It was in real time. I mean, the slow-mo isn't reality. Reality is it happened in a second. He didn't try and push through. He didn't try and really hurt him. Crosby was on his way going down, partially because of the high stick. So he's in a vulnerable position, which is how Ovechkin could have gotten the penalty, and Niskanen's there. And that's just, that's the way we saw it. And, I would stand by that. But, I know in this situation, there are going to be a lot of different viewpoints.
I know your ears are still ringing from the Holtby chants, and I guess it's the Caps fans' chance to go after Fleury to some degree. He's decorated, even if he's taken Niskanen's name off his cap or put the Scotch tape over or whatever it was the other night. But been sensational, showing the grit, and meanwhile, Braden Holtby right now, he's kind of got to carry this. It has not been a great week for Braden Holtby.
No, and that's the difference in the series, right? I mean, you've got a guy at the other end who was potentially going to be gone at the trade deadline, and if he was, we'd be looking at Tristan Jarry right now, and that probably wouldn't get the job done. Braden at the other end has been good. He has not been Braden Holtby, I think, in large parts of this postseason, and I think even going back to the regular season, good. Not that guy that, is able to make the big save and the save that you need. Last night, you get the breakaway and a chance to make the stop, and we've seen it a couple of times. And, yeah, it would have taken a big save. But that's what you need your goaltender to do because those things are going to happen. And if you want to win a Stanley Cup, the margin is so slight that one mistake, an Orlov skate, a breakaway that you can't get the big save on, a lot of times that's going to be the difference. Have the Capitals been badly outplayed in this series? Absolutely not. Are they getting to the interior and getting those quality chances? Look, the volume of the shots was what was driving Washington, but the quality of the chances honestly favored Pittsburgh last night. And if the Caps are going to come up with a victory at the other end, they're going to need Braden Holtby making saves, but they're going to need it at the other end as well. It's a team thing for sure.
Make a case for Game 7 and winning a couple of games. Right? I don't think there's any doubt they can win these games, and the margin has been pretty slim. And the lack of awakening, to your point, of their best players, that's going to have to change for them to survive. But that's not a stretch to me to think that Ovechkin and Backstrom and Oshie can combine for 3 goals in a 5-2 victory on Saturday night and move the thing back up to Pittsburgh where, let's be honest, if they win Saturday, they're much more in play. It really is all about Saturday night. Momentum's 24 hours old, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. And, the case is that you are able to get the kind of start that you had in Game 3, that you had often in the Toronto series, especially at Air Canada Centre. No more of this wading into the first period stuff. They did that, and they shouldn't have, and they all acknowledged it. Barry Trotz was upset about it. You want to win a Stanley Cup, you better play for 60 minutes. And I think that was what was upsetting last night, was in a game they absolutely had to have. And if you get it, this is the opportunity given to you. You want to change the narrative? Then go change it. Stop talking about it. Go change it. And I think that's what's been a little bit infuriating, is that we've been hearing this all year, and then you see a first period like that and say, no, wait a minute. They're without Letang. They're without Crosby. They're without Sheary. They lost their number one goaltender, and you're getting nothing but perimeter stuff here. And your top line didn't deliver, even over 60 minutes. Didn't deliver. No bueno. No good. You've got to be able to go at them. Now, if you do that, the case is that you finally say enough is enough, and that you go in and you get the job done, and you do it with a good start in the first period. They have made, I will say, through the course of this series, a physical investment in the series. Brian Dumoulin probably being held together with duct tape and bubble gum right now. There are a lot of guys.
Hornquist too, right? Yeah, I mean, they're courageous, dude. I mean, they really are. I mean, you talk about the heart of the champion when they're putting their jaw in front of shots the way Hainsey did in Game 2. It's very, very obvious they're want, and they're willing to sacrifice teeth, blood, whatever it takes, right?
That's the difference, and they did it last night. Pittsburgh, it doesn't have the better team on paper right now, but they don't play on paper. That's why they won last year. I mean, keep in mind, last year in the middle of the season, they have a coaching change. They lose the first 4 under Sullivan. And at New Year's, anyone in hockey would have told you, yeah, Pittsburgh's probably going to miss the postseason. They end up winning the cup. Now they've got the swagger. Now they're going out and doing it. You have to go out and do it. You have to attack it. There's nothing to save anything for on Saturday night. If you do that and you get a win, and now you're sending it back to Pittsburgh, the Penguins, they weren't even able to close out the Stanley Cup final on home ice. There can be some doubt there. And then you start to get the big engine running and that physical investment that you made in game 1, game 2, game 3. And they did. There's no doubt. They're hitting. The hitting game has been there. The physical game has been there. Make that investment stand up. This is the time in the series in 5, 6, 7 where you've got to make it stand up. Now, it's unfortunate you got to win 3 in a row. But offensively, if you're not going where Angels fear to tread, you're going to be done on Saturday night. If you are and you get those chances, then you have a real chance of forcing it back to Pittsburgh, and then the door opens again.
He is the voice of the Washington Capitals, now 6 years deep into this, and a great guest to talk hockey with as well. You can follow him out at Walton Caps on Twitter. He is the voice of the Washington Capitals, John Walton. And look, next time we'll talk about the Hershey Bears experience, and we'll talk about the Minnesota Twins and Rod Carew's new heart and all that good stuff. But right now, I need the Capitals to have some heart so I can continue to watch hockey and, not clear my calendar before June 10th, because I got 5 weeks here with nothing on my hands but hockey, and I need them to win on Saturday night, John. That's just how I feel.
I need that too. I think we all do in this part of the country. Anytime you want to talk Bears or Twins, you let me know.
All right. I hope that's 5 weeks from now. I hope to be talking about like the Senators or the Rangers with you and in red terms in about 10 days as well. John, take care of yourself. I know it's been trying times. I appreciate you taking a little time coming down the mountain and chatting with us a little bit.
You bet, Nestor. Thank you.
You got it. John Walton joining us here. Walton Caps, the voice of the Washington Capitals. And everybody's hurting in the Red Kingdom. I mean, I'm not going to kid you. It's, that was a dark assignment to go down into the bowels of with Yins and that into Berg late into the night on Wednesday night and stand next to Justin Williams and Alex Ovechkin and Barry Trotz and Braden Holtby and Kevin Shattenkirk and TJ Oshie and Kuznetsov and all the guys that I talked to in the locker room after the game. This has been a rough week. Been a rough week for the Orioles, I think, as well, up in Boston. It's been the Wizards have been slapped around a little bit early in the week up in Boston, too. Between the whole Boston-Pittsburgh DMV triangle thing, it's been ugly. I'm going to need a weekend alone here and try to figure things out, but I'll be down at the phone booth on Saturday night for Game 5. Count me as one of those guys tweeting out Caps in 7, because that's, you got to believe. It's like Tug McGraw. You got to believe. You just got to believe. I'm in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox. It's free. Sign up once. You get it every morning at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And last but never least, breaking news happens first on our WNST tech service. That is also free and brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is here this Thursday, next Thursday, every Thursday, hopefully for a few Capitals Thursdays and more hockey Thursdays as we get up on to Preakness, and he'll have some draft recap as well as some Oriole baseball on the SSV on WNST. I'm out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Don't forget our road trip, still $100 off. Green Bay, Minnesota, Nashville, as well as London. Get in on that. We're going to end that this weekend. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. It's under the Road Trips tab at WNST.net. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.